You voting Trump?
I am voting Trump, yeah.
Why so?
Well, because his economic policies assisted the Midwest in a huge way due to his corporate tax cuts and what it allowed, because there was such a huge stranglehold by Democrats, especially in this state, with localization of taxes.
Andrew Wilson had a live debate on TikTok with an influencer named Parker, and things didn't exactly go smoothly. Parker spent most of the time cutting Andrew off and avoiding his arguments altogether. It was frustrating to watch because it felt less like a real debate and more like a one-sided rant. Whether Parker was intentionally ignoring the points being made or just didn't fully grasp them is up for debate. Either way, it made for quite an awkward exchange. Let's dive into the video and see what happened.
Especially in industry, it allowed them to get what they needed the most, which was access to capital, and assisted them in expanding. It was extremely helpful. And I'm hoping that he'll start making moves back to similar economic policies, which would help the local trade.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a question in terms of the corporate tax rate that it's at. Can you name me one point in American history that you'd point to where the corporate tax rate was that low, where we saw like good effects on the economy?
Yeah, during the Trump administration.
Okay, I'm referencing other than the Trump administration.
Yeah, but why would that? I don't understand why that's a non sequitur. During the Trump administration, well, hang on. During the Trump administration, I just gave you my argument. My argument was that businesses in the Midwest needed to have access to capital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So listen, if you actually, I can send you a paper from a liberal and a conservative economist from Harvard that actually indicates there was only 0.04% annual GDP growth, specifically from the tax cuts.
Yeah, but do you recognize
$1.9 trillion of debt-related spending?
Well, I'm happy to respond to this.
$28 billion to the economy.
Let's say it only. Well, I'm going to explain. So,
in the middle of my sentence.
Well, okay. So the thing is that you're throwing out more red herrings, but I'm willing to respond directly to this.
What's a red herring?
Well, so you're trying to get me to look at something that's beside my point.
It's not beside your point. I was currently making a point. You cut me off.
Well, can you respond to my point? The GDP would have nothing to do with what I said. Zero.
So, okay, so if the corporate tax cut was beneficial, it would have caused a increase in the GDP, right? Increase in the overall trading
well, it
power
did.
of the economy.
By your own admission, it did. You just don't like how much it did.
By 0.04%.
Yeah, so why would that matter for the localization in the Midwest?
It added 0.04% to the annual GDP.
So it added to the GDP?
Which is about $28 billion per year.
Yeah.
So it nowhere near paid for
itself.
itself.
How does that address my point, Parker?
To justify the spending.
How does that address my point? Can you steel man my argument for me so I know you understand it?
Yeah, so you think that it builds up American manufacturing?
That's not what I said, Parker. What did I say? I said in the Midwest, specifically inside of the Midwest, which is where all the automotive plants.
I said Midwest.
Yes. So can you address what the Midwest growth looked like, Parker?
Well, I was referencing the overall.
Yeah, I know what you're referencing. You're referencing a red herring. Can you reference what the Midwest growth was? Yes, it was. What the overarching GDP would be a reference from all 50 states. Many of them have Democrat controllers. They have their own tax brackets. They have all of this. What I'm asking,
but it's from hang on,
bro. I'm asking specifically.
Listen, Andrew,
if you can address my point for the Midwest specifically.
The effect on the GDP.
Let me know in the comments. How frustrated would you feel in this conversation so far? Honestly, I've never come across this Parker guy before, but it's obvious he's in over his head. He doesn't seem to know enough about the topic to be debating with someone like Andrew Wilson, who has much more experience. Instead of responding to the actual points Andrew is making, Parker keeps going off on tangents and completely ignoring the questions being asked. This kind of thing happens way too often. When you try to have a real discussion about issues like crime, suddenly you're accused of being racist. Or if you bring up protecting women's sports, you get labeled transphobic. It's like a go-to move. Twist the conversation and avoid addressing the actual argument. And Parker? He's doing exactly that. Constantly interrupting Andrew and taking the discussion nowhere. If I were Andrew, I'd be beyond annoyed right now. But let's see how this unfolds. Drop a like, and let's get back into it.
According to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Which has what to do with my point, Parker?
$1.9 trillion is not justified, given that it only added.
Has nothing to do with my point.
$1.9 trillion of spending is the overall country spending this, and then it only added 28 billion per year.
Okay,
right,
Parker, first of all,
okay, that's very low,
he
very
muted
low
me.
ROI, right? Very low. So why would we use the money to do this rather to invest in other things in the economy?
Okay, so Parker, you still aren't actually addressing my point. When you're specifically looking at
Answer my fucking question.
well,
or
you're
I'm
not
gonna make
answering
you
to
answer the
mine.
question.
You don't get.
Oh, you're so mad.
You're
you wanna answer the
you're
question?
refusing to answer mine,
Do you need a Kleenex, Andrew? Answer the
bro.
damn question.
Bro, why are you
I
not
answered your
answering to
question
mine?
already. I addressed it. I
okay,
said
how?
The economic growth that specifically comes from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is minuscule to the amount of money that we put into spending for it. So if you want to put money into investments, put money in investments that give you better ROIs than 0.04%
Yeah,
annual
okay.
GDP growth due to 1.9 trillion.
Parker, that doesn't address
tax cuts go to
that doesn't
people who are
address my
rich.
argument, Parker.
I addressed it. I addressed it directly.
You're still
what
spurging,
was the
bro. You need to
economic
calm
growth?
down.
I
Stop
asked-
spurging.
No, listen. I was looking at the economic growth specifically from
Yeah,
the tax
that's
policy.
not. That doesn't address my argument, Parker.
It does. That
Okay,
addresses
how does that?
the
How would
argument
that address
exactly.
my argument, Parker?
Yeah, because it references the economic growth that comes from the tax policy that you referenced.
Yeah, but you're talking about the national GDP. The national GDP is not going to directly address the Midwest because each state has its own economy. So you could have two states, for instance, that could sink the GDP based on certain.
Andrew, I understand what
Parker,
you're
it's my turn.
I'm talking
Parker,
about the effect of the
Parker,
policy.
why
I'm
won't you
not
let me talk,
referencing other
Parker?
effects.
Why won't you let me
Because you're
talk?
dumb.
You're still
Because you're dumb.
spurking.
I'm talking.
Oh,
about
now we're getting into
other
insults?
effects that you're referencing. I'm not counting those because I'm only referencing.
Now
what comes
we're going to insult
from the-
Parker. You're going to
I'm
insult.
only talking about what comes from the fact of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Okay, so I'm not referencing any of the other impacts on the economy. I am specifically looking at a paper from a liberal and conservative economist that highlights the effect of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. You are not.
Yeah, that has
acknowledging what I'm
nothing to do
saying.
with my argument, though.
That has everything.
It has nothing to do with
What the
it.
fuck are you talking
It
about?
has nothing
What are
to
you
do with
talking
it.
about?
Parker,
Analyzing the
Parker,
effect of
did
the
I
tax
what?
policy has everything to do
Parker,
with
stop
your
spurging. Calm
argument.
down, so we can have a conversation here.
Andrew, you don't have.
You're
any idea
still
what you're talking
spurging,
about.
bro. You're still spurging.
You're deflecting.
You're
not arguing
screaming
what
at the top of your
I'm
lungs.
saying.
Calm down so that
I'm
we
not
can
screaming
talk,
at the top of
bro.
my
You're
lungs.
spurging.
You're gaslighting.
I'm
You're
trying to
gaslighting.
give you the
I'm
argument.
not screaming. You're gaslighting.
Then why won't you let me speak, Parker?
I am letting you speak.
Okay,
You're just
great.
not
So
acknowledging my points.
yeah,
Here's the catch.
because you can't move and deflect from what my argument
I'm not
was.
deflecting, genius.
You
know what a
asked why.
deflection is.
Okay, did you ask me why I was voting for Trump?
I did.
Okay,
you
and
said
did-
specifically the benefits from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in terms of
For
specifically
what?
the Midwest.
Yes.
Midwest growth.
Yes.
And what you're not acknowledging is that the Midwest is a part of the United States.
Oh no, Parker! I didn't know that. Is the Midwest part of the United States, Parker? I had no idea.
Did you know?
I had
did you
no
know
idea,
that, like,
Parker.
There's also other manufacturing in the United
Yeah, it
States.
doesn't address
When
my
I look at the
argument,
national
Parker.
GDP,
Doesn't address
when I
my-
address the national GDP
It just
growth,
mutes
it actually
me.
does address your argument because it looks at the overall effect of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
You're like an
Also,
NPC,
who's
bro.
yelling right now, you're fucking screaming into the mic.
No, you
know
are,
the
bro.
effect
You're
of
an
tax
NPC.
policy. You have no
NPC.
understanding of economics. I'm quite
NPC.
literally right now.
Wow. Where do I even start with this one? So, Andrew Wilson is trying to have a serious discussion, but this TikTok influencer, Parker, just refuses to engage with the actual point being made. Andrew's talking about the economies in a specific area, keeping it simple and clear. But Parker, he keeps dodging and deflecting, accusing Andrew of things like gaslighting and deflection, while ironically doing exactly that himself. It's like he's deliberately misinterpreting what's being said just to avoid addressing the original argument. And honestly, this is what drives me nuts in debates. Instead of actually listening to what someone is saying, people twist it into something else to suit their narrative. Parker keeps shifting the focus to unrelated topics, completely ignoring the point Andrew made at the very start. It's frustrating to watch because Andrew is being logical, but Parker just keeps talking over him, trying to dominate the conversation without actually debating the facts. At one point, Andrew can't help but laugh. It's like, what else can you do when someone's acting this way? Parker isn't debating. He's just trying to control the discussion without addressing any real arguments. If this is what Gen Z debates are turning into, I have to wonder if social media is playing a role in all this. It's like some people just want to argue for the sake of it, not to actually exchange ideas. Let me know in the comments if you agree. What did you think about Andrew Wilson's approach versus Parker's tactics? Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.